Hello everyone. Also the ones not watching right now, but will watch the recording. We're very happy to have you here. This is Babilika, and today we have a talk about the German-speaking countries and their book markets and their possibilities, but also their problems, of course, especially for independent publishing houses. And we thought that we might give you an overview of how these markets are in general, an overview about like how the situation for independent publishing houses is, and what our strategies are to overcome the problems and barriers that we have, of course, as smaller publishing houses. And I'm going to start a little talk about the German book market in general, or the German language book market, which also, of course, contains large parts of Switzerland and Austria. And I think we have about, correct me if I'm wrong, we have about 100 million German language speakers in these three countries. So it's quite a lot, and 85% of them basically are in Germany. So I think we are the most important book market for this language. In Germany, I don't know, we have about 1,500 to 3,000 publishing houses, which sounds a lot. A lot of them are really small and tiny, and a lot of them are publishing very few books per year. Of course, the market is dominated by those three major publishing groups, which are Bonnier, Random House, and Holzbrink. And I think they have like 90% of the book market in general, actually. And so the smaller publishing houses, a lot of them are working in niche, so they have special topics, or they have regional books, like only concerning topics that evolve around one region or one area. Sometimes, of course, special interests, not general literature, for example, not so much. Some of them do that as well. And I think in the last 20 years or so, there has really evolved a very vivid and lively scene of independent publishing houses, mostly younger publishing houses founded in the past 20 years. And a lot of them work together also closely. And of course, we meet all in those two book fairs that we have in Germany, which are in Leipzig in spring and in Frankfurt in October. But also there are associations, and we have associations in Germany. We have one association of independent publishing houses. There's one in Switzerland, which Annette will talk about later. And I think there's kind of a similar cooperation system in Austria as well. And in Germany, it's called the KURT WOLFF Stiftung, which is a foundation dedicated to the independent publishing houses. They themselves give out two big awards every year. And apart from that, the German government introduced a German publishing award, which has been given out since 2019. And it's given to about 60 to 80 publishing houses per year, which is kind of a lot. But then again, if you think we have more than around 2,000 publishing houses, it's not that many that will get any funding from this award. So for years in Germany, we have been working on and talking to politicians and to everyone involved in the government to seek out a funding that is really a substantial funding for a lot more publishing houses, because we think that, I don't know, the whole the variety of the book market is depending on those small publishing houses that not only publish mainstream titles. And we have to make sure that everyone in the country and everyone who speaks German can read all these titles and can get them. And a lot of publishing houses are struggling right now. So there's a lot of publishing houses that gave up, or also they have some crowdfunding going on to get some money to fund their new books. And and as I said, we talked about a lot with politicians in all parts of Germany about how can we get a funding, like a substantial regular funding from many publishing houses. And there is some willingness in the governments, but not in everyone, and everyone has to be involved. As you know, Germany is a federal state, so we have 16 countries in Germany, and they all have to be on board, and they are not. So this is a long discussion, and we do that for some years now. And yeah, and we are always looking over the borders to Austria and Switzerland because they have that kind of funding. It's working better or worse, depends, I guess, and it depends on how the situation is every year. But at least there is something there which acknowledges the fact that this variety of publishing is really important, and this bibliodiversity is really important to the society as a whole. And so at least as long as we don't have that, we try to cooperate in different ways. The smaller publishing houses try to cooperate. They group together to send their catalogs. They have events together. They have book fairs together, especially designed for smaller publishing houses. And yeah, and this is what we do now. And I mean, of course, we speak from a very luxury situation because we have a very high literacy in this society. Books are everywhere. People buy books usually, and they are, they're used to buy them in hardcover format, which is very unique to the German book market, I guess, because you can, like, I don't know, they're getting expensive now, as everything does, but books really are, yeah, in their hardcover version, they are a luxury object in a way. And yeah, and the German book market is interesting in that matter that usually books are published in a hardcover format first, and then 2 years later they will be published as a paperback as well for people who can't afford the more expensive issue. Yeah, and we three, Annette, Tanja, and I, we know each other from all these events, like the book fairs and also the meeting we had with the International Alliance of Publishing in Pamplona 3 years ago. And we realized that we have a lot in common in our daily work. And so we do that as well in presentations. We have presentations together. We work closely together with a lot of other publishing houses as well, and try to, not only the exchange of knowledge. I mean, I go to book fairs all the time, and we learn so much about how the other publishing are doing things. So where do you print? How do you do this? How do you solve this problem? And have you heard this? So, I mean, that's basically how it's everywhere, but still in a very developed book market as the German book market is, still there's so much things going on, so many changes, and of course, so many new regulations, and you have to follow up all the time. And for me personally, I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years now, so I've learned a lot, but then I realize every year I have to learn something new, which is kind of fun and part of the job, but also you never have the feeling, oh no, I really got it, I understood it. So it's always a surprise. Also the titles, which titles and topics are relevant and which is in the best-selling list, and sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's totally surprising what happens in the literature scene. And coming back to the cooperation, as I mentioned, we have the KURT WOLFF Stiftung. We give out also, we not only have these awards, with 2 awards for best publishing houses, but also we have a catalog which groups all the German publishers together and has a presentation on the book fairs and has some reading events and has a special stage on the Frankfurt Book Fair where there are readings all day through the whole book fair. And that's basically what we try to do next to speaking to politicians about the funding, but that's basically our job there. And of course, this is not a paid job. It's we do that on the free time. So it takes up a lot of time and energy. And I guess it's the same for you too, in Switzerland and Austria, to do all these things that are not directly related to your own work, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe you can jump in on that, and how's the situation different in your countries?
Yeah, then I start with Austria. Like we have a really, it's Austria, it seems like the wonderland of the fundings for Germany. But the reason why we have fundings is the reason that it's more complicated to get into the market for us, because we have 9 million people in Austria, German-speaking people, and The problem is we have like really small publishers. We have a few bigger ones, and there are maybe, I don't know, 3, 4, and one is on the concern to Hansa, for example, like Scholnay. This is one of the biggest, or the Styria group, or G&G. It has also like one place in Berlin, but all the others are small and smallest publishers, and we are already like the not the biggest one, but we are already in the middle, and we have like 7 to 8 people. So this is the situation in Austria, and we all have like small programs, and we try to to come over the border to Germany, but it's really hard because in Germany the big concerns and the big publishing houses are dominating the German book market. And so we are in Austria with Austrian topics and small independent publishers. And for this reason, we have these funding systems, which allows us to survive on one hand, and to be maybe brave is the wrong word, but we can afford like more artistic, more books beside the mainstream. It's especially in the children book, we had a lot of artistic books, and also in the in the literature, like we have really outstanding novels, which won also a lot of prizes. And the next problem we have is, as soon as we have success with one of our authors, the big publishing houses in Germany are coming, and they take our Austrian authors to Germany, and you can say bye-bye. So this is a bit the problems we are handling in Austria. And we have like a bit a complex system of associations. Like we have the Hauptverband des österreichischen Buchhandels, which means association for the book market in Austria. And then we have like 2 associations with the unromantic title Arge, and it means working group. So we have one working group for the adult books. It's called Privatverlage working group. And we founded a new one since, I think it's 10 years ago. And it was like a working group for children books. But what is new, we have like funding and money. We can work with our Children Books Association. And so it's possible since 2 years that we created a catalog, for example, for the international book fairs. It didn't exist before. Like in Germany, there are a lot of things which is quite normal, but in Austria, we don't have an association for all the things which are going abroad, like all the international things. And we try to work to get more together with this working group in children books. And on the other hand, also with other publishers. It doesn't matter if you are a children publishing house or if you are in Germany, in Switzerland, or in Austria. It's important that we can work together, and we can build some, I don't know, some advantage when we are close, and when we can share the costs, for example. What we did also is like with a Swiss publisher, we did some bookstore events. Like we invited for a dinner or something like that. We try to really come more close to other publishing houses, because the advantage from the big publishing houses is that they have a lot of publishing houses and they have a lot of books, and so they can do things we cannot afford. For example, if you are a random house, you book a table and you get maybe the price for a few books for free because you have 100 books you need to bring into the bookstore. And we are a publishing house and we pay sometimes the same price. And for us, it's really hard to to come into the big bookstores like Thalia and other, like these are the concerns in Germany and in Austria, and they already dominate mostly of the book market. So coming back to the funding system, we have this funding system, and it means Verlagsförderung, it means funding for publishing houses. And to compare, I don't the price Daniel was talking from the KURT WOLFF Stiftung is 10,000 euro. Am I right?
No, there's 2 awards, and one is 35 and one is 15.
Ah, okay, yeah. And the smallest funding starts with 10,000, and you can get around 180,000 a year. So these are the possibilities in Austria. So we have a lot more money, and there are a lot of publishers. They get a lot of money in the year, and you can also get some fundings from the other provinces. So if you have an author from, example, Lower Austria, you can get also some funding from Lower Austria or from Tyrol or something. So this is also a possibility to get a bit more money. And
do you know how many publishing houses are funded with this funding? Like the official one? I thought something around 40 publishing houses. Is that right?
I thought about 50, so 40 to 50, I'm sure. Yeah. So, but it's necessary to publish 3 years. So if you are a startup, it's really hard to come into the system because you need to survive 3 years, and we all know how difficult it is to survive 3 years at the beginning. And afterwards, so you can get like 10,000 euro, and if you make more books, it can happen that you come higher and higher and higher. And so you have a little bit of how to say, it's not so risky to publish here, but it's still not possible to survive only with the funding. So like publishing houses like us, we are really struggling because we spend a lot of money to get this attention, like to pay a press event things, to come into the big bookstores. So we are in this middle thing, so or it's working or not, so it's really hard to come over this. And I think this is also the topic from the middle publishing houses. They are struggling the most, I think. And yeah. And with this association, like this children books, we made a catalog. I can share it with everybody here. So you have all the 11 publishers from the children book in one catalog. So you see the names of the publishing houses. We don't have something similar for the adult books. So this is the first catalog, I think, in this in this sort. And yeah, we have this money. So like we have since 2 years around 30,000 euro of funding. So we can afford this catalog. We can go. So the next thing we want to do is this children books on tour with German stories. So this is, for example, a thing we were in Prague, also with Daniel and Annette, and we were like talking there how it's possible to get more attention, and then we were talking with the German stories, and now we have a cooperation, and we wanted to start the next year, and so we will send our books on tour to 20 book fairs, but we can afford this only with the funding we get from the Austrian state. So this is quite a nice thing, and we hope that we will get the money for a long time. But for example, now we have a change in the political system. So you never know how it will change the funding system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny part as well, because if you talk to politicians and then you convinced someone that there's funding necessary, then there will be elections, of course, in the next 1 or 2 years, and then someone else will be at his or her place. And then you have to do the whole convincing all over again. So.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and the next thing, what is also difficult for us in Austria, it's not only to come into the to the bookstores, it's also that the German press is a bit ignoring us. You have a difficult in everything you can imagine, also with events in Germany, and all the publishers also in Switzerland, they try to get attention from Germany, and the funding system was founded to get to get some money to come over these borders and to invest money for the attention in Germany. This was the reason why it started in Austria.
Mm.
Maybe you want to talk about Switzerland.
Well, for us, this lobbying issue is also a big thing, but I want to start with the associations first, so you can kind of map our situation that we are in. So Switzerland, to start with, is a country with 4 languages, which is German, Italian, French, and Retromanche, a minority of language. But yet it has to be taken care of, so it will not be extinct. In the German-speaking part of Switzerland, we have 5.9 million inhabitants, and this is about 66% of whole Switzerland. Therefore, we also have a lot of publishing houses in the German-speaking part. They are about, at least the ones that are members of the big association SBVV, the Swiss Booksellers and Publishers Association, are 250 members, 250 publishers. But SBVV has also their members that are booksellers or agents or sales representatives or distributors. So it's a big association for the book market in general. It's celebrating its 175th birthday tonight. So it's one of the oldest associations in Switzerland in general. They are working closely with Livre Suisse in Suisse Romande. I don't know how many members they have. It's less, of course, but they are very active as well. And Alesi in Ticino, in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. I will not talk too much about them since we are talking about the German-speaking market. But I mentioned them because it's also one of our biggest challenge that we face. It's, as I mentioned in our talk before the recording, often when I get book like titles offered, and then I ask, okay, are the rights still available? And say, yeah, but we have a German copy because we sold the rights to Germany. So people are not aware that we are a part of the German-speaking market. Probably Austria has the same topic on the table sometimes. And then I mentioned, yeah, of course, we are like 4 markets in one country. We have, 3 markets. We have Italy, France, and Germany, who are our neighbors, but also our markets. So that's the biggest challenge that we face, because we don't have a lot of sales numbers if it comes to presenting them. Doesn't mean that there's not a lot of quality. But that's the challenge that we face as publishers as well. just as Austria, how do we get our authors into the big market? How do they become? How do they get the attention that they should get? Or yes, and as for the association, it's a big association, and of course they cannot take care of every little issue that concerns us independent publishers, and we don't expect that. But we just thought, some of the publishers thought, okay, we have to become active. We have to do something about this, and we founded SWIPS 2007. I mean, I was not in the founding team, but it was founded 2007 also with the approach that we want to become politically more active, do more lobbying, create awareness for what we are doing as publishers, since we noticed that a lot of people have no idea what we do actually as publishers. And that's also a challenge that we have to face. And so we also do events, and we just did this book table thing in the in a bookshop that you mentioned, Tanja. We just had a big Aktion in Thalia, Aurel Füssli, it is in Switzerland, and SWIPS organized that we could have a table with the logo of SWIPS saying these are books from independent bookstores, and be aware that we need this independent book publishers to have this diversity of titles. Yes. So these are the kind of actions we do, but we also tried, of course, to connect with our neighbors. So such as KURT WOLFF Stifung, we're always in exchange with KURT WOLFF Stifung. But and 2 years ago, SWIPS organized a Salon Suisse in Vienna, where we try to invite Austrian publishers, but also media, and just to get somehow an exchange of information and to get to know each other. It was a kickoff. It didn't really work yet, but I hope there will be more Salon Suisse in Vienna and we can kind of work this out. Because as I think, and SWIPS thinks that to work together and empowers us, especially Austria and Switzerland, in creating awareness for the market that we represent. So when it comes to funding, we just had heard the news that the Swiss, the federal offer that the Swiss parliament decided that they cut down the budget for the cultural État. I don't know how you say that. We have like 2% less money for more stakeholders. Like so, there's even less from the cake than we got now. And because we have funding, we have structural funding from the Federal Office of Culture, and it's we can apply for it all 4 years, but it's a very I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me, but it's like a pocket money. It's not a lot. It's not. We cannot compare it at all with what you get in Austria. For example, to be transparent, I applied. It was a big, long process for the application. They need a lot of information. It took me 3 days to fill in this whole formula. And then at the end, I got 5,000 francs per year. And that's for 4 years. So it was nice to be kind of seen, but at the other hand, I was wondering if these 3 days are really worth 5,000 francs. But then again, you shouldn't Yeah, so we are fighting to to kind of tell the politicians that it's very little money for the work we are doing. So it's not only a finance lobbying thing, but it's also creating value and creating awareness for the things that happen behind the book, behind the physical book. Yeah, so that's what SWIPS is doing. And SWIPS is a group of, at the moment, 29 publishers. But there's always coming, like publishers coming and joining SWIPS, but then leaving again if they are not independent anymore. Because as Daniel said, there are a lot of small publishing houses that disappear or do the crowdfunding also here in Switzerland, and there are more and more. And we already thought we should all start crowdfunding so people are aware that something is not going right. Yes. And so there's a lot of movement going on, some changes, a lot of changes. I think it's just the beginning of the wave. I think we'll have a big wave coming in the next 2 years of publishing houses either going into fusion with some bigger German publisher maybe, or even disappearing. So that's the situation in Switzerland at the moment. But we also have, coming back to funding, there's Pro Helvetia, who's, for example, funding translations. If we sell rights to abroad, they are funding the translations, about, I think, 70% of the translation, and promotion grants. And they also they help connect people a lot with some projects. Like they also fund the stands at the book fair of the Swiss Association, of the big association. And then we have this subsidiary system in Switzerland. We have the cities who are funding projects and titles, but also have a prize once a year for the authors for their creation, like we call them creation funds, like creation grants. So they can write and concentrate on writing. For the publishers, there are printing costs that are sometimes funded, but then it has to be a Swiss author, or for example, for me, a Zurich-based author. There has to be the connection to the city. The same with the canton. We have 26 cantons. Not all of them are German-speaking cantons, but they also have grants. So there's a lot of possibilities how to get funding for projects. And we also have a lot of foundations, of course, in Switzerland. So there's a lot of, but not a lot of them are funding literature. So it's again the author who has to apply. So that's about it.
And as you mentioned, the necessity for, or the need for funding, I mean, this is really something new, because we all went in publishing and we knew that there's not big money. It's a cultural topic. It's a cultural business. There's not the big money involved usually. So most of us have been aware for that forever, that we will not have a lot of money for our projects and for ourselves. But I think this situation has changed in the recent years. It's not only because of after COVID or whatever happened, but of course what happened in the world in general, with the prices, the inflation and everything. The production costs went through the roof, and I think this is really a new situation, because also there was a study, I think 2 years ago, that we lost in Germany about 6 million people who do not read anymore. So it's probably different developments in other parts of the world and in other continents. But I think this is true for the whole of Europe, that people, of course, they have a lot of ways to distract themselves, to spend their free time. They can do so many things online. Why should they read books? And less do that. So we always have to also, in public discussions, we have to justify our work a lot more than we used to. And I think this really worsened the situation, especially for the small publishing houses who do not have a big backup financially or from the structure, and do not have that many titles. So the risk is spread out over these titles. And I think that, of course, the media doesn't pay as much attention to literary titles as they used to. So there's much fewer spots where books will be reviewed or recommendations will be made. And for whatever reason, they tend to always recommend the same titles. So there's probably 5 to 10 best-selling titles per season, and everyone will talk about them. And all the other titles, even from the big publishing houses, will basically not get much attention anymore. So you have to switch your own attention and your public relations work and your press PR work to social media, which also makes us become dependent on those social channels. And I think this is true for all the European countries, that they have this struggle with losing readers, basically.
But that's something we have been doing in Switzerland a lot. We have tried to connect with the booksellers much more, because there are a lot of people going into bookshops, but you need to get them to buy your book. So and you need to inform. So I think media is important, yeah, but it's a fact that we're going to have less and less media in the future, I guess, at least printed media. And so the bookshops are becoming even more important, or the booksellers personally are becoming more important to us than, or important again. And the personal contact from publishers to booksellers has to be kind of reactivated in a very informal way, maybe to get them to know about the books or about the publishing house and become curious what they are doing. So we just, for example, we wanted to organize a meeting, or we did 2 years ago. We did a hike with booksellers from Switzerland. We invited them to a hike, and then we had a nice barbecue. It was super informal, but it was a great success. And I think it's a little bit atypical, maybe, but especially if it's possible for regions, for local, like to become active, you just have to try to do it in a very informal way, maybe nowadays, which is also a chance, because going away from all this digital and what I mean, these very tight structures, and just to open up in the way how to transport the content might be a big chance again to create awareness about how far away we are from knowledge or from education, for example.
And we are also a bit euphoric at the moment about this new book talk hype and young adult and new adult readers, because I'm working since 15 years in the publishing houses, and I always heard that we are losing readers and nobody wants to read anymore. And now we have like full bookstores with young people, and they are super interested in young adult and new adult romance. And the problem I see at the moment is that they read mostly books from big publishing houses, and we need to bring them to our independent publishing, because I think we are making a lot of content. They are interested. When I think about Reprodukt publishing house in Germany, like this is the perfect publishing house for the young adult readers, because they publish comics and graphic novels, and we are also publishing novels. They are a bit out of the box. They are for young people, and they are really beautiful. How they are, yeah, how we are doing it with color edges and whatever. And a bookstore told me that now the young adult readers, they read Kafka at the moment. And I think this is a big chance, but the small publishing houses, they don't have so much time in all these things. So again, we need to come together and maybe sit on a table and think on the possibilities we can reach all these new, yeah, euphoric readers.
Yeah, the theory basically in Germany is that only few publishers make a profit from those kind of reasons because they publish this kind of books. But the hope is that these people are not lost for reading, and they can read now and they will read later when they grow up and read different stuff as well. So they will buy books from other publishing houses as well. And that's basically the hope. But I think what really the discussion we have with this funding thing is that how much should the government and the state feel responsible for the cultural variety in this book business? I mean, because there's always this discussion, yeah, if people don't want these books and the publishers go bankrupt, then why should there be any interest, you know? And then, of course, on the other hand side, you know that some special things have to happen for a variety and a democratic society as well, to show all the aspects of our society, and therefore not only mainstream titles that work well and that sell well, but everything else as well. And you have to be aware as a state and as a government that you have to take care of these parts, because you also you fund and you substitute theaters, for example, and you substitute cinemas, and even now the gaming industry for computer games and online games and mobile phone games is heavily funded in Germany, which is ridiculous because those games sell anyway, but they still get funding to be able to compete with other companies, basically from the US, from Japan, and from other European countries. And there's an interest that Germany wants to compete, but in the book business, there's not much interest that this should be preserved and should be substituted. And this is really something that we have to make them aware, because also the politicians, a lot of politicians tell me they come from a certain region of Germany, and then they say, yeah, but in our regions we don't have any publishing houses, so why should I fund anything? And then we say it's not about the publishing houses. You're funding the possibility for all your people that live in your area to buy books that have a broader view of the world. And all the parts of Germany and all the politicians have to be aware that they have to give a certain amount of funding to this direction. And I know it's a tough thing because we have so many regions and we all have to bring them all under one head, as I mentioned. But it's then again, there are some countries, like, for example, I live in Hamburg in northern Germany, and we have probably a funding from 2026 going on, starting there. Because they said we cannot wait for the rest of Germany to be aware how drastic and dramatic the situation is for the small publishing houses. So we have to install some sort of funding, and they hopefully will start that in the year after next. And I hope really that the other countries will join in. But yeah, well.
Yeah, and I think the importance is also, as you said, it's the variety, but sometimes it's also that we take the risk of like really special novels, for example, and afterwards the big publishing houses, they publish the second and the third, but we took the risk to make the first one. And there are a lot of books I made, and the authors are a big success, and they won the German Book Prize now. And on the other hand, like, this is for the literature, the argument, I think, that without us, without the avant-garde of the publishing, we don't have this mainstream and the big success and all these famous authors, because without us, there is no start. And on the other hand, we with the children book is our argument. Every fifth child in Austria has problems in reading. If we don't invest in the children books, we don't have, we lose the readers, and it's also a big loss of, creative and fantasy and yeah, to think on your own and to go a bit further. And you cannot leave the children book market on the big mainstream books. Then you only will have something like the unicorn, the no unicorn, I don't know the exact translation, and all these books, they are nice, but they are not going deep into the world. And yeah. And this is also, I think, the difference and also the discussion with the politics is, are we doing like a big part on cultural variety and art, or are we handled as a company? And this is often the problem, because then they say, yeah, but you are a company and you gain your money with selling the books and whatever. But I think we are both, and this is the yeah, also the problem, and with the discussions with the politics. Yeah.
Yeah, they send us from one to the other because they always say this, right? And then we try to say, yeah, you're both responsible. Like the economics ministry and also the one for cultural topics, they're both responsible that we exist. And of course, I mean, we as publishers, we are the spot where the art will be turned into a product, right? I mean, we are the ones printing copies. So yes, we are making money, but also we enabling the artists and their life, and also not the artists only, but also like the graphic designers and all the other illustrators, translators who work with the book industry. And I mean, we are the center who coordinates all of this and who gives them basically work, right? So that's what we always tell them to the German government as well, that we say, okay, but this book industry, really, there's a lot, millions of people are working with this book industry, the graphic designers, the illustrators, and so on. And so if you fund these 2,000 small publishing houses in Germany, you will fund many, many more people, and enabling to have them for them to have jobs and to have the creative work also be published. Yeah. But you know, I don't know if that's, there's always this discussion that these at least in Germany for us, it's a discussion that the publishing houses that are member of the Stiftung, of the association KURT WOLFF, some of the other publishing houses or media sometimes says, okay, is this some sort of quality signal that someone is a member of this association? And I'm not sure about Switzerland, for example, because I think a lot of independent publishers in Switzerland are a member of SWIPS. And is that in any way anything you can use as a quality label or so?
Well, the only thing is that we check who's becoming a member in SWIPS, but that has a lot to do with the structure of the publishing house, of the professional, like the professionality of the publishing house. So on a how shall I say, company level, yes, it is a quality sign. But when it comes to publishing, I think it's not necessarily. But I wouldn't dare to decide if it's really so or not. I think the idea of SWIPS is really a idealistic one, to come together, to work together, to make things possible that wouldn't be possible if we were all alone and fighting alone, and to empower each other, but also to finance things together that we couldn't finance, things like that, you know. So quality, there is a variety, and that's the important thing. And when it comes to, I mean, there's also the big association like of SBVV, and there are 250 members. That's the big, let's say, the big machine, the big association that handles a lot of things when it comes to quality, or yeah. Was that the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking because our situation is kind of different as we have so many publishing houses in Germany, and also only about 140 are members in our association. So most of the independent publishing houses are not part of the association. And so what are the criteria? Yes, as you mentioned, it's a certain professionality. And they have to fulfill some certain standards because I mean sometimes there's a lot of publishing houses who will do one book per year or so, and then we say, okay, it's not enough. They're not really a publishing house. So, but yeah, apart from that, it's not, content-wise, it's not a quality signal, or usually it shouldn't, because there's so many other publishing houses that are doing great work, but then still not part of the association.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of the big difference between Germany and Switzerland, because most of the Swiss publishers are independent publishers.
Yeah.
So it's just a question, do they want to become a member of SWIPS and do some work together? That's the main question. It's not a, yeah.
And as our market, I mean, when I say our market, it's also your markets, right? Because they are also dominated with Random House, Holzbring, and Bonnier, and we all have the same whale swimming next to us. But yeah, the cooperation systems in the three countries are different, at least. Yeah, that's true. And Tanja, there was never an association like this in Austria, was it? Like for independent publishing houses only, in a way?
Yeah, I was thinking because our thing is a little complicated because we have this this association with all the publishers. So if you are a member, then you are part of it. It's kind the Börsenverein, Hauptverband. Beside this, there are two associations, and they are called like working group. And the one was the private working group, and they get also funding. And it happened like it was also the thinking that all the private publishing houses without concern structures, they come together and they get money. But they were founded before the funding of the publishing houses existed. So they got money, and then they did lobby work to get this funding system for the publishers. And we were founded a few years later. And now we were thinking that the children book, nobody is interested in the children book, and we need some working group and also some money to get attention for the Austrian children book because nobody, sometimes it feels like nobody takes attention because the big publishing houses are dominating the bookstores and everything. And so it's, yeah, we don't have this independent thing actually. But also like mostly are independent publishers.
Yeah.
And especially in the children book, it's even worse because in the children book, we are almost the second biggest player in Austria with 7 people. And children book, I'm doing my one and myself, like I'm doing the program. And we have really, really small publishing houses, like with one-man shows, and they are also part of this association.
Barbara asked if we could talk more about the collaboration between independent publishers and shops and how we collaborate today with them as well. I mean, we were planning to have I mean, there's always some certain events, right, where you invite bookstores to a place, to a presentation, to a book or party, whatever, and you have them invited and you present the new books to them, of course. We did that with children's books, for example, in Hamburg last year, and we hopefully try to do that again in Vienna and also in Munich next year. And of course, shops are buying books directly. I'm not sure about you, but you also have distribution, I guess, both. Yeah, you do. And you do as well, yeah. And so they will buy the books through our distribution. But they can also, of course, the bookstores can get them through the big, how do you call that? There's some 2 or 3 players, distributors who not are our distributors, but they're big distributors and they sell to all the bookstores, of course, and they can choose whatever channel they like to get their books from. So sometimes you send your sales representatives into the bookstores, for example, and then we'll say, okay, I'm going to order this book, but not through you directly. I'm going to order it through the big channels, something like this. And also they can, of course, order via our own distributions as well. I think it's the same for you too, right?
Yes, of course, it's the same. But I think also what Barbara meant was the direct contact between publisher and shops, and as a possibility for, I mean, that's for us in Switzerland, it's quite common that when you have an event somewhere at a venue that is not a bookshop, you invite a bookseller to do the book sales at the event. So you show them that they are important to you, and you want to give something back to them by inviting them to do the sales and get the percentage that they receive when they sell books. So it's a win-win situation. So that's a possibility, for example.
And also we realized that there's a lot of stores who sell other stuff, and usually they don't sell books, but they sell presents and toys maybe. And sometimes they will have a small corner with like 5 or 10 books. And we realized that in a lot of those stores, if one of our books is there, they will sell it really well. So we now try to also focus on these kind of shops to get in direct contact with those non-book shops, basically, and try to convince them to take one of our books, or several, of course. And this is what we try to widen. We have like 10 shops or so doing that, and we see there's a lot of these shops in Germany, so we try to do that, which are not only regular bookshops. This is also another thing.
And we also try to collaborate with the independent publishing house, not the bookstores, the independent bookstores, and like we always have the challenge, like what are we doing with the big players and what are we doing with the independent one? Because we saw that there are some independent publisher bookstores, sorry. They can sell a lot. Like if they are convinced of a book, they can sell 200 to 500 books in one small bookstore. And so we try to convince our partners in the independent bookstores. But on the other hand, we always need to work also with a big player, and that means we have to talk with them. Yearly, we have to make informations like months before. We have to pay some, what does it mean? Promotion costs. Like you pay a yearly promotion cost, and they have like a marge which is much higher than all the independent stores. And in Austria, especially, we have the problem that they also take €1 plus on every sold book. So they are, I think, around more than 50% now. And this is also a bit of problem with these big players.
Yeah. And referring to Bar's question about the payment, I mean, for us at least, it's so we sell to bookstores, or they order the books, and then they have 3 months time usually to pay the bills. And sometimes depends on the model you have with your own distributor, you will wait another 1 to 3 months till you get that money. So sometimes it's really, it depends. For us, it's quarterly. So if someone sells a book at October 2nd, we will get the money in April. So it's really a long time. And Dorota,
and 1 year later, they can send back everything.
Yeah. And that's always, but the bookstores, that's funny for us, when bookstores complain they are a really terrible situation, and then I say, yeah, but you can send the books back. We cannot send the books back to the printers, so it's really funny. Also, Dorota asked what kind of promotional tools we are using. Of course, we all use social media channels. Basically, I think probably Instagram and TikTok are the most important. We don't use TikTok so much, but Instagram. You don't do TikTok as well? Okay.
We don't have the time. So it's really a time thing.
Yes. And of course, we have newsletter tools and stuff like that. And of course, but on the other hand side, we try to do regular promotional work in the press, right? So we have, we send out review copies to all the channels like newspapers, radio, television, whatever, bloggers, Instagrammers, of course. And the realization for me, at least, is that in the one or two past years, this has switched heavily towards the social media channels. So a lot of more reviews are done there. A lot of less reviews are done in papers and radio. Radio in Germany is still okay, the public radio, and it's publicly funded. And okay, television basically rarely happens. but yeah, you have to do a lot of on Instagram, and usually you have to hope that other people on Instagram will pick it up and show the book as well and present it, and others will see that and do the same. And so sometimes there's like a little chain effect, but yeah, well, yeah.
And we tried, like with the TikTok thing, is that it's getting really important at the moment because of this book talk things. But we really don't have the time to get to this TikTok language, because it's another form to communicate, and you really need a face and a story. And like we are able to make some reels with the books, but TikTok is way too way beyond. And we decided to collaborate more with book talkers, so that we take this way between, like we don't make our channel, but we try to to go more to the book talker, that they promote our books.
Okay, so far, I mean, I think we are aware, especially when I've watched the talks yesterday about the book markets in Asia and so on. I think we all are aware that we are in a very privileged situation of having a high literacy in the society, having a huge tradition of buying and selling and producing high quality books for hundreds of years now. And still there is this struggle and these changes. And I think if I remember me as a child getting books from the library, I remember how many books there were around and how many they sold and how many copies each book sold. And now I think this has drastically changed, which really made the calculation for small publishing houses really difficult. And what I wanted to say is that I think similar something to that we said in Prague on the book fair is that I would really value if all the publishers would really be aware of these changes in the way that they would try to focus on the titles that they think that are really necessary, that should be published, that should be out there, and not think so much in especially the bigger publishing houses. They have these spots in their programs, or like we have to have one thriller, we have to have one love romance novel, and so on, and you have to fill these spots no matter what. And I think they would really do well if they would focus on titles that should be published, and they say, okay, we have this book, it should be out, and not the other way around. We should find any book to fill this void. So I think this would really help everyone involved, also the booksellers with their choices, and the readers with their choices, and the journalists, and everything would be easier if people should really think, let's reduce our catalog like slightly, but at least in a way that it will have an effect that would be really helpful for everyone, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Anything to add?
Shall we maybe talk about the rights?
Buying and selling rights?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, I can say that in Austria we are not buying so many rights. Like in the literature, yes. There are some publishers like Schollnay, Residenz, and they are buying licenses from abroad, and mainly also with the guest, a honor of guests in Frankfurt. And in the children book sector, they are not buying so many. Like we are buying 2 licenses or 2 or 4 licenses a year, so it's really not much, and it's like a chosen thing. Like when I see something on the book fairs, I fell in love, then I publish it. And I feel it's really complicated with the funding system in every region. So if I know the funding system in one country, it's really easy to do a second book. But like to have the overview with all the dates of applying and whatever. So it's some countries are really complicated and some are really easy. For example, Slovakia is really nice and easy, and especially East Europe is really like doing a lot of effort, and there are a lot of associations. They try to get the books into the German market.
Yeah, the German market has an advantage that it has a lot of readers, but it also has the problem as you have a lot of competition when it gets to selling on air for buying rights, especially. And I remember talking to people from really minor languages, like, I don't know, I talked to a publisher from Albania, and she said, yeah, basically I can buy whatever I want. I bought Harry Potter, I bought Twilight, something like this. She did everything she wanted because she's the only one basically doing these kind of books. And I thought, yeah, that would be nice and easy, but then again. Yeah, and selling rights, how does that work for you? I mean, especially in the children's books market, illustrated children's books, my experience is that it's really much more international than it is, for example, with novels. I mean, German novels don't travel that well. Children's books you can actually sell, right?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Annette? Or?
No, I just wanted to add that this is where the challenge becomes a chance for us, because we have these 3 markets in our country, and we can actually enter the markets via our national language. But at the other hand, of course, we always tried. At one hand, we want to collaborate with our Swiss partners, language partners. But then at the other hand, we have the big markets, and it's easier for of course, if you have a publisher in France, you would rather take the one in France because the distribution is kind of clear and better, or more oriented on the market, and it's easier for them. But yeah, it's a sympathy thing. Like I just bought rights from a Swiss romand publisher, and a Swiss romand publisher bought rights from me, and it's kind of an exchange thing. And the chances that Pro Helvetia is funding it because it's another language. So yeah, but if I buy rights, like if I sell rights to another country than the language that we have in Switzerland, it's very difficult, as I mentioned before, because I cannot present big sales numbers like from the Swiss market. I always have to explain that I sell 80% of my books in Germany, and that's the number that you should look at. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also made the experience that we sell a lot of licenses in the children book novels. It's almost impossible when you are not winning a book prize, or you are in the long list of the book prize. Or yeah, one thing was European Book Prize. That was also really nice. So you got some funding. The countries got some funding, and so we sold also some rights to, for example, Serbia and Bulgaria. Yeah, but it's really hard, like for the novels, and I really like the to meet our international publishers, because sometimes it's like we publish something of them and they publish something of us, or I meet other publishers. So it's kind of you meet some freaks all over the world, and they have the similar way of thinking, and in every country I find like a twin publisher, and this is really nice.
Yeah, this is really what also encourages me working more internationally. I like these meetings. I like meeting with our publishers, especially from other countries, because the markets are so different. And I realized that in so many meetings on the book fairs, but also, of course, in Pamplona, for example, when you talk to them, they have entirely different problems and issues. And I mean, in your work in the International Alliance, you of course, you realize it's basically the reason for the existence of the Alliance, to enable them to publish certain books they cannot publish on their own, and have some cooperations maybe. And yeah, well, is also really inspiring, this, and you get a better view on your own market when you step back and take a look at it from maybe a perspective from, let's say, Ghana or from Philippines. I was in the Philippines recently, and it's so entirely different, and you can learn some things, and you can also question your own markets in some ways.
Yeah, but what I think is in generally important to like call it out to the world is to keep like looking for possibilities to work together, instead of thinking of having any kind of border in between. Like, don't think limited, just think, how can we work together? How can this work out in both ways? And I think that's why we're talking about this, also about associations or collaborations in general. That's the idea, and that's what, yeah, strengthens the industry at the end again.
Yeah, and I see when I buy rights from somewhere else, I see it's also as an inspiration. Sometimes I see, for especially in East Europe, they are so much braver sometimes than us. And you see there are really artistic works, and it's really inspiring how the international book market is working, and how brave you can be, for example, as a Czech publisher, because we were in Prague this year, and I was really astonished on all this work they are doing there with this smallest market they have.
Okay. Maybe for now. What do you think? Good? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for this talk. And we say hi to everyone who's going to watch it afterwards. So, yeah. Thank you for watching until now. And we wish everyone a nice rest of the Babilica conference, and a nice weekend as well. And I hope to see everyone soon at the book fairs. Please say hi. Tanja, Annette, and I will be in Frankfurt, for example. So please come around. Thank you so much.